Let me tell you, playing truth or dare with my buddies was the biggest mistake of my life, especially when I ended up losing. Jax's eyes practically glowed with the most evil, brilliant idea he had ever hatched. He dared me to go confess to the ultimate ice queen of our campus. Yes, Scarlet. He told me to track her down, confess my feelings, and record every single humiliating second of it. But it got worse. The exact words I had to use were, I, Ethan, only want to be your dog for the rest of my life. As long as she didn't explicitly say no, I would win the bet. They shoved a photo of her in my face. There she was, dressed in a simple white button-down and jeans, quietly reading right by the library window. The golden sunlight caught the ends of her hair, making her look ridiculously innocent. She gave off this pure, refreshing vibe, honestly just like an ice-cold glass of lemonade on a summer day. Hearing her name, I actually breathed a massive sigh of relief. Everyone knew about Scarlet, the untouchable campus beauty hailing from the finance department. She was famous for being completely cold and unapproachable. I figured she would reject me faster than anyone else on Earth, which was honestly a million times better than the alternative of streaking. And what if I lose this little game? I asked nervously. Jax grinned. If you lose, you are running 3 laps totally naked around the track, and we are live streaming the whole thing. Ryan already had his phone propped up, totally ready to broadcast my doom. You've got exactly 30 minutes. It's 9:40 right now. Bring that video back before 10:10. Sweating bullets, I grabbed my jacket and bolted out the door. My friends' obnoxious cheers and mocking laughter echoed all the way down the dorm hallway. The finance department dormitories were all the way on the other side of our massive campus. Sprinting through the dark, I convinced myself I was just going through the motions to get this over with. I imagined she would just shoot me an icy glare, call me a total psychopath, and boom, I would be completely off the hook. Panting, I finally reached Scarlet's building. I anxiously paced back and forth 3 times, right outside dorm number 302. After what felt like forever, the very same girl from the photograph walked out into the hall. I swear, she was even more gorgeous in person, though her face looked unusually pale. In her hand, she was lugging a black plastic bag that looked extremely heavy. Excuse me, Scarlet? He stuttered. I bit the bullet and nervously shuffled up to her. She stopped dead in her tracks and slowly turned around. The flickering street lamp cast a dark shadow across her face, making her eyes look like 2 terrifying pools of deep black. Those eyes didn't look gentle or innocent at all, not like they did in that picture. Instead, a heavy, suffocating aura washed over me, like she was intently sizing up her prey. Yes, she answered. Her voice was incredibly soft, almost a whisper, yet it somehow pricked my skin like a freezing, sharp needle. My heart suddenly started hammering out of my chest, and every single word I had prepared totally vanished from my brain. The mocking faces of my dorm mates flashed right before my eyes. The terrifying image of me streaking naked on a live stream gave me the final push I needed. I squeezed my eyes shut and practically shouted, I, Ethan, only want to be your loyal dog for the rest of my entire life. Fearing for my life, I instinctively braced myself, shrinking back into my jacket, just waiting to take a brutal, humiliating verbal beating from the untouchable Scarlet. I honestly prayed she would tear into me as harshly as possible, so I could just run back and officially win this stupid bet. But the crazy thing was, she didn't yell at all. Scarlet just stood there, dead silent, staring at me for a full 30 seconds. Then, the corners of her mouth slowly curled up into this deeply unsettling, strange smirk. Her voice came out as faint as a ghostly sigh. Sure, she whispered. I violently gasped for air, totally doubting my own ears. Wait, what did you just say? She took one slow, deliberate step forward, coming uncomfortably close, almost face to face with me. Being that close, I could smell the harsh, stinging scent of medical disinfectant radiating off her clothes, mixed heavily with this sickening, metallic odor I couldn't quite put my finger on. Slowly, she raised her hand toward my face. Her fingertips were completely ice cold as she ever so gently brushed them right against my trembling chin. Her tone carried the tiniest hint of a sweet smile, but it sent such a jolt of terror through me that the hairs on the back of my neck stood straight up. I said, I accept your offer, she murmured. Right at that moment, the heavy plastic bag in her other hand rustled ominously. Out of the corner of my panicked eye, I caught a horrifying glimpse of a dark red stain inside. It looked exactly like fresh blood. From now on, you are my dog, she declared softly. She rose up on her tiptoes, her freezing lips practically brushing against my ear as she whispered, the kind of dog that can never, ever escape. My blood ran cold. I stood frozen like a statue right there in the dark, helpless as I watched her slender silhouette slowly fade back into the gloomy shadows of the dorm hallway. I looked down, realizing the half-empty water bottle in my hand had been completely crushed in a panic without me even noticing. Feeling like a ghost, I practically floated the whole way back to my dorm room. The second I pushed my heavy door open, 6 heads whipped around at lightning speed. 6 glowing phone cameras were instantly shoved in my face, recording my every move. Jack eagerly snatched my phone right out of my shaking hand to check the audio recording. When Scarlett's eerie, breathy voice echoed out saying, "Sure," the energy in the room completely shifted. The entire dorm room went so dead silent that you could literally hear Mason aggressively gulping. "No freaking way," someone muttered. "The Ice Queen actually said yes." Ben frantically ripped off his glasses and started wiping them, sounding like he had just seen an actual ghost. "Dude, Ethan, did you seriously just hit the ultimate college jackpot?" My legs gave out completely, and I collapsed heavily into my computer chair. A horrifying layer of cold sweat was completely soaking through the back of my favorite t-shirt. Scarlett's terrifying parting words felt like a jagged icicle, twisting over and over deep inside my brain, the kind that can never escape. And worse, I couldn't stop picturing that pitch-black plastic bag, hiding that dark, wet, reddish mass inside. The more my mind raced trying to rationalize it, the more deeply unsettling and dangerous the entire situation started to feel. "Guys, something is seriously wrong here," I muttered, aggressively clutching my hair until my knuckles turned stark white. "She's definitely just messing with my head. Either that, or she totally didn't hear me clearly. Bro, who even cares?" Jack laughed, slapping my tense shoulder so hard it felt like my collarbone would actually shatter into dust. "Mission totally accomplished. My man, she didn't explicitly reject you, which means you officially won the bet. No naked track runs for you tonight." Ignoring my panic, the guys eagerly cracked open cold beers to celebrate my supposed victory. Beer foam was splashing messily all over the dorm floor, but they were too hyped up to care. Absolutely no one noticed that my hands were shaking so violently I couldn't even manage to light up a cigarette. Feeling sick to my stomach, I grabbed my phone, desperate to listen to the horrifying recording one more time, only to find the file was completely gone. Even the trash folder had been mysteriously, flawlessly wiped clean. "Okay, this is getting genuinely creepy now," I muttered frantically to myself, staring at the blank screen. "What's creepy?" Mason asked, leaning over my shoulder with an annoying, playful smirk. "Are you already totally whipped by the untouchable campus beauty?" He teased mercilessly. "Seriously, man, if you two actually end up getting together, you owe all of us a massive, expensive steak dinner. Get together, my foot. Are you insane?" I snapped back, angrily tossing my glitching phone onto the messy bed. I'm tracking her down and setting things straight with her first thing tomorrow morning. I swear, it was supposed to be just a stupid game, but that night, I couldn't catch a wink of sleep. Every single time I squeezed my eyes shut, I saw Scarlett's terrifyingly pitch-black eyes, feeling the ice-cold brush of her hair against my neck as she leaned in to whisper. At 3 a.m., I woke up desperately needing to use the bathroom. I blindly reached for my phone to check the time, but the screen suddenly flashed to life. It was a text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. "You awake?" I freaked out so completely that I almost chucked my phone straight at the wall. Who the hell texts at 3 in the morning? Could it actually be her? My fingers were shaking like crazy as I just replied with a single question mark. An instant reply shot back. "I'm thirsty. I want soy milk from the shop by the east gate. Add 2 scoops of sugar." All the blood rushed straight to my head, and then my entire body went ice cold. How did this psycho even get my number? How did she even know I was awake? Who is this? I typed back, my hands trembling out of control. "Your master, of course." The exact second that text hit my screen, 3 soft knocks echoed from our dorm door. Knock, knock, knock. They weren't loud at all, but in the dead silence of the hallway at 3 a.m., they slammed against my chest like a heavy bass drum. Plus, our dorm was all the way up on the 3rd floor. Who in their right mind would show up at this ungodly hour? Who's there? My throat tightened up, and my voice came out completely cracked and pathetic. There was absolute silence from the outside. I practically held my breath as I tiptoed over to the door and peered through the peephole. The hallway light was totally busted. It was pitch black out there, but I could clearly make out a pale, ghostly figure standing right outside, holding something in her hand. Oh my God, it was Scarlett. How the hell did she find our dorm? And how long had she just been standing out there in the dark? Beads of cold sweat rolled right down my forehead and into my eyes, stinging so badly that I could barely even keep them open. I pressed my entire body weight firmly against the heavy door, listening to my own teeth chattering loudly. And trust me, it wasn't from the cold. It was pure, unadulterated terror. "Open the door." Her voice drifted right through the solid wood, sounding soft and sickly sweet, like she was trying to soothe a crying toddler. Look what I brought you. Back inside the room, the noise was waking everyone up. Jax rubbed his sleepy eyes and grumbled, "Who the hell is knocking at this hour? Don't open it." I literally shrieked, my voice cracking entirely. "Do not open that door." The guys all jumped, completely startled by my sudden panic attack. Ben crept over and whispered, "Dude, what is wrong with you? Is the freaking Grim Reaper out there or something?" I swallowed hard. "It's Scarlet." My voice sounded as dry and rough as coarse sandpaper. The absolute second those words left my mouth, the whole room went dead silent. Is she totally insane? Jax cursed heavily under his breath. Creeping into the guy's dorm in the middle of the night? That's messed up. I knew right then I needed to clear things up with her. I slowly pushed myself up against the wall, my legs shaking like absolute jelly. This stupid truth or dare game had gone way, way too far. Early the very next morning, I practically dragged Jax along to come with me. He was totally against it, but I hauled his butt all the way over to the finance department building. "Just wait for me right here. I will make this extremely quick," I told him. I swallowed hard, feeling my Adam's apple bobbing heavily in my dry throat. I had literally just walked up to Scarlett's door, room 302, when she suddenly stepped out. She had changed into a cute pink dress, but her face was still as pale as a sheet of paper. The second she saw me, her dark eyes lit up like shooting stars had just fallen right into them. "You're finally here." Her tone was completely natural, like a sweet morning greeting between a dating couple. She happily reached out to hold my hand, but I dodged it. "Where is the soy milk, Scarlett?" I quickly took a half step back, distancing myself from her by a good couple of feet. "Listen, yesterday was just a massive misunderstanding. We were just playing truth or dare, and I honestly only did that because I lost." "I know," she interrupted smoothly, the corners of her mouth curving up as her eyes crinkled into happy little crescent moons. So it was just a silly game. Please, don't take it so seriously." I tried my absolute best to keep my voice steady and calm, but my hands were tightly clenched into shaking fists behind my back. "I really am sorry for bothering you." Right after saying that, I quickly turned around to leave, but she instantly grabbed my wrist in a death grip. Her hand was ice cold, yet her physical strength was terrifyingly immense. I yanked my arm back twice, but to my horror, I actually couldn't break free from her grasp. "A game?" She slowly tilted her head to stare at me, and the warm light in her eyes rapidly sank down, like water instantly freezing into solid ice. "You think you get to decide when it starts, and you decide when it ends? Well, yeah." I flared up, my anger finally pushing past the fear. "Did you seriously think I actually wanted to be your freaking dog?" "Well, yeah," she repeated incredibly softly, and then she suddenly burst into this manic laughter. The sound was sharp and completely unhinged, like fragile glass beads shattering onto a hard floor. "Ethan, just yesterday you told me, loud and crystal clear, that you only wanted to be my loyal dog for the absolute rest of your life. It has only been a few short hours, and you have already forgotten?" Her voice wasn't even that loud, but all the college students walking by immediately stopped to stare at us. Their wildly judgmental stares pricked my back like 1,000 sharp needles. My face burned so intensely hot you could probably fry an egg on it. Both furious and insanely anxious, I finally snapped. "Let go of me right now. Just let me go." She slowly looked up at me, her long eyelashes casting a dark, creepy shadow right under her empty eyes. The sheer, unhinged obsession burning in her eyes was downright terrifying. You absolute psychopath." I finally ripped my hand away from her vice-like grip and stumbled 2 huge steps back. "I am warning you right now. Stop stalking me." I turned around and absolutely bolted for my life, only to hear her voice drift lightly through the air from right behind me. "You cannot escape me." Once I made it safely back to the dorm, Jack saw how ghostly pale I looked and immediately asked me what the hell had just happened out there. I breathlessly explained everything that had just went down. He frowned deeply, taking a slow drag from his cigarette. "Bro, this girl is definitely out of her freaking mind. Ethan, maybe we should talk to a counselor." "Yeah, right. And say what, exactly?" I yanked my hands through my hair, totally losing my mind. "Tell them I harassed some girl in a game, and now she's playing psycho stalker in real life? No way. I'd literally die of embarrassment first. Then what are we supposed to do?" I whipped out my phone, ready to block her crazy self for good. But as my finger hovered over the screen, my blood ran cold. Right beneath her creepy morning text, there was another message. One I had completely missed. "Your shoelaces were untied. I tied them for you." My heart slammed against my ribs. I practically snapped my neck looking down at my sneakers. The laces on my right shoe were tied in this perfectly neat double knot, the exact kind of knot I never, ever use. And I knew for a fact they were completely undone when I went to sleep last night. That meant she was inside our dorm room. While I was sleeping, cold sweat erupted across my forehead, sliding down my chin and dropping right onto that perfectly tied shoe. For the next 3 days, I lived like a cornered animal, jumping out of my skin at every single sound. Scarlett didn't try to corner me again, and my phone stayed completely dead. No texts, no calls. I figured the block actually worked. My roommates, bored out of their minds with the lack of drama, went right back to roasting me. They called me an absolute idiot for rejecting the campus beauty queen. I didn't even bother firing back. The crushing weight in my chest was just getting heavier and heavier. I felt this intense, phantom stare watching me while I ate, while I walked, and even when I buried my face in practice problems at the library. I could practically feel those icy eyes burning holes into the back of my neck. Then came Wednesday afternoon in a massive lecture hall. The tiered room was packed shoulder to shoulder. Playing it safe, I slid into a corner seat way in the back row. The second I flipped open my textbook, someone lightly tapped my shoulder. I spun around and almost jumped straight out of my damn skin. Scarlett. Scarlett was sitting right there, directly behind me, looking exactly like she always did. Her face was completely pale, like she'd just been dragged out of a meat freezer. She was cradling a criminal law textbook in her pale hand. When she saw me, her eyes crinkled up, and she flashed a weird, tight smile. What a coincidence. Coincidence? Yeah, right. This was a core class for our major. What the hell was a finance student doing crashing it? I dropped my voice to a harsh, trembling whisper. What are you doing here? To see you, of course. She flipped a page, her voice feather-light and sending shivers down my ear. I couldn't stop thinking about you. I couldn't even focus on my studies. What do you actually want from me? Pissed off and terrified, I checked my surroundings. I told you to stop following me, but you belong to me. She snapped her heavy textbook shut, her pale fingertips slowly tracing the edge of the cover. Her dead eyes locked onto mine like I was just another piece of property. Your body, your time, they all belong to me. Kids around us were already starting to stare, pointing and whispering under their breath. I was suffocating, feeling like a million eyes were stabbing into my back. I shoved my chair back to get the hell out of there, but my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I didn't even have to guess who sent it. If you dare walk out, I'm telling everyone your little secret. Sneaking a peek into the next stall in the guy's restroom yesterday, my brain instantly exploded into white noise. Yesterday afternoon, I was in the bathroom. The guy next to me was coughing up a lung, so yeah, I glanced over a few times out of worry. How the hell did she know that? Did this psychopath plant a tracker on me or something? I was completely trapped. It felt like invisible nails pinned me to the chair. I forced myself back down, my shirt completely soaked in ice-cold sweat. For the rest of the lecture, I sat there sweating bullets, feeling like I was resting on a bed of rusty nails. She just sat there quietly, flipping pages and occasionally scribbling notes. The sickening scrape of her pen against the paper squeezed my heart tight with every single stroke. The exact second the dismissal bell rang, I grabbed my bag to sprint, but her fingers hooked my collar. Hold on. She shoved a heavy thermos into my chest, still radiating heat. I made you some soup to keep your body strong. Boom. Every single classmate locked onto us like massive theater spotlight. Jax and my roommates squeezed through the crowd, practically drooling over the fresh gossip unfolding in front of them. Whoa, Ethan, did the campus goddess make that soup just for you? Jax teased, elbowing my ribs with a massive wink. It's nothing, man. I tried to push the metal thermos back, but Scarlett clamped her icy hands over mine. He's been staying up way too late, she cooed softly. So I stewed some black chicken soup for him. She flashed them this flawlessly innocent smile, batting her eyelashes at the guys. You must be his roommates, right? Ethan talks about you guys all the time. He says you take such good care of him. Jax and the boys just stood there, completely starstruck. I was paralyzed with shock. When the hell did I ever talk to her about my roommates? Scarlett, we've got stuff to do. We're heading out. I practically threw Jax forward, desperate to break through the crowd. What's the rush? She suddenly called out, her voice slicing through the noise. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the classroom right after the bell, it echoed powerfully. Ethan, yesterday you told me you loved it when I wore pink dresses. I wore this just for you today. Tell me, do you think I look pretty? Boom, the entire room erupted into absolute chaos. Every single pair of eyes instantly locked onto me like spotlights. Guys were catcalling, girls were whispering, and half the class already had their phones out, snapping pictures. Damn, not bad, Ethan. You actually bagged the campus queen. You sneaky dog. Since when did you two hook up? The vicious gossip crashed over me like a suffocating tidal wave. My face burned a violently hot, panicked red. What the hell? When did I ever say that? Cut the crap. But you did Times say it, she whispered, dropping her gaze. Her voice shook with fake heartbreak, and the edges of her eyes turned pitifully red. You called me last night and told me yourself. You said you wanted to see me wear it for you every single day. I was so insanely furious. I thought my brain was going to short circuit right then and there. When the hell did I times call her? Not bad at all. Ethan, my man, Jack sneered from the sidelines, completely cutting off my desperate attempt to defend myself. Suddenly, she forcefully shoved a silver bracelet into my palm. A tiny silver bell hung from the chain, letting out a sharp, mocking jingle. Put it on. Her tone was dangerously soft, but her eyes screamed that I had zero choice. Hell no, I'm not putting that on. Put it on, she repeated. Her voice was as light as a feather, but her stare turned dead and hollow. Or else. I'll march straight to your department advisor right now and tell them you sneaked into my dorm room last night to steal my things. Oh, I have proof. She slowly pulled something out of her pocket. My heart dropped. It was my student ID card. The photo showed me smiling like an absolute idiot. I found this right outside my door. Who knows if you dropped it while creeping around in the dark? How in the world did my student ID card end up in her crazy hands? I explicitly remembered stuffing it into my wallet yesterday. The few students still lingering in the hall were already giving me deeply suspicious looks. Checkmate. I had completely lost. My hands shook uncontrollably as I took the cold metal and locked it around my wrist. Jingle. The bell chimed once it sounded like the death knell of my freedom. It looked so perfect. She smiled, her eyes curving into dark crescents as she gently flicked the little bell. From now on, you are mine. You're not allowed to talk to other girls. You are not allowed to look at other girls. You're not allowed to. Before she could finish her twisted rules, my phone started vibrating like crazy. Unknown number. I wasn't going to answer it, but Scarlett's face instantly twisted into pure rage. She violently snatched the phone straight out of my grip and glared at the incoming call. Her eyes immediately went as dead and freezing cold as a morgue. Chloe, she hissed the name, her voice dripping with an absolutely sickening amount of venom. Who is she? Chloe was just the academic rep for our major. Literally all she did was collect assignments for the professors, so we barely even exchanged nods in the hallway. The only reason on earth she'd be calling right now was to nag me about my advanced calculus homework, which I stupidly forgot in my dorm room yesterday. But to Scarlett's deranged mind, this call was a massive betrayal. She stared a hole straight through my glowing screen. Chloe's call just kept ringing and ringing. Scarlett's face darkened with every second, the fake sweet warmth from a minute ago completely evaporating. Her glare felt like shattered glass against my skin, sending a freezing chill straight down my spine. Are you very close with her? Her voice dropped to a terrifyingly quiet whisper, trembling just a bit. It didn't even sound like an interrogation. It sounded more like she was on the absolute brink of a total mental breakdown if she heard the wrong answer. We're not close at all, just regular classmates. I threw my hands up defensively, my palms totally dripping with cold sweat. She's honestly just checking on my homework. Ordinary classmates. She let out a dark, mocking laugh, then suddenly grabbed my phone tighter. Her fingertips brushed against mine, feeling like they'd just been pulled out of a deep freeze. She glared heavily at the caller ID, her eyebrows pinching together so hard you could crush a rock between them. Would ordinary times classmate be calling you in the dead of night? It is literally the middle of the day. I panicked. What time do you even think it is right now? Completely ignoring my frantic protests, she aggressively jabbed the answer button and slapped it on speakerphone. Chloe's crisp, bright voice instantly echoed from the speaker. Ethan, about your advanced calculus homework from yesterday. He is busy. Scarlett cut her off like a guillotine, her tone sharper than broken ice. Stop calling my boyfriend from now on. The other end of the line dropped into a stunned, dead silence. When Chloe finally spoke, she sounded utterly baffled. Who is this? Why do you have Ethan's phone? I am his girlfriend, Scarlett announced with absolute, terrifying authority, shooting a vicious, warning glare right up at me. Her eyes clearly screamed, I dare you to contradict me. I manage all of his affairs now. I will personally make sure he turns in his homework. You do not need to worry your head about it. Boom. She hung up instantly and forcefully shoved the device back against my chest. Her fingertips were still trembling wildly, and honestly, I couldn't tell if she was shaking from psychotic rage or something completely different. Listen to me. From now on, you are never allowed to answer her calls. You are not allowed to talk to her. Do not even look in her direction. She stared at the little bell on my wrist. Her voice was muffled, sounding just like a child who had been deeply wronged. Do you hear me? I could only whisper in utter shock. Scarlett, you are crossing the damn line, I finally snapped, unable to take her twisted game for another second. What right do you have to control my entire life? What gives you the right to make all my decisions? Because you're my dog. She looked up at me, red veins popping in her bloodshot eyes, yet her tone was chillingly dead set. You said it yourself, remember? You wanted to be my dog. You're forgetting that was just a stupid game, I argued. Well, I didn't take it as a game. She stepped into my space, leaning in until she was almost completely flush against my chest. I could smell the faint, sweet scent of her shampoo, sickly mixed with the sharp, clinical odor of hospital disinfectant. From the very second you said those words, you belong to me. Your friends, your free time, your eyes, they're only allowed to look at me. A crowd of bystanders was already forming around us, pointing fingers and whispering loudly. My face burned hot with sheer embarrassment, and I just wanted to drag her somewhere private to talk. But my hand had barely even brushed her arm when she slapped it away like she'd been burned, screeching, "Don't touch me!" Her voice instantly spiked to an ear-piercing pitch, the rims of her eyes flaring a vicious red. Were you trying to explain things to her just now? Do you still care about her deep down? I don't, I shouted back, caught somewhere between blind panic and pure fury. Can you please just be reasonable for once? To you, I'm not even as important as some random classmate. She suddenly let out a laugh, flashing a heartbreakingly bitter smile. But then again, you never actually took me seriously anyway. It was only then that it hit me she wasn't just throwing some crazy tantrum. Deep inside those dark eyes, hiding right beneath the anger, was something else entirely. She looked exactly like a little kid whose candy had been snatched away completely wronged and utterly terrified. While I stood there totally dazed, she suddenly yanked something out of her pocket and aggressively shoved it into my chest. It was a silver bracelet with a tiny bell on it, looking completely identical to the cursed one already strapped to my wrist. Give this to her? I asked, pushing it back. No way, I'm not taking it. This is a backup for you. She forcefully jammed the cold metal into my palm, her fingertips gripping my hand so hard her knuckles turned stark white. I'm worried you'll sneakily take the first one off. So, here's this one. You are going to wear it right where she can see it. I am not wearing that, I snapped. Are you going to put it on or not? Her voice suddenly dropped to a deadly whisper, a terrifying flash of pure ruthlessness slipping through her eyes. Because if you don't wear it, I'll march right over and tell all your classmates that you peeped on me taking a shower in the library yesterday. What kind of crazy nonsense are you spouting? I almost jumped right out of my damn skin. Where the hell would anyone even take a shower in a library? I am not talking nonsense. She spoke in this slow, unhurried drawl, calmly fishing something else out from her other pocket. It was a photograph. The picture clearly showed me sitting right by the window in the library, just quietly reading my book. Judging by the angle, it looked like it had been shot from the building across the street. See? I've got hard proof. You kept staring right in the direction where I was sitting. If that wasn't peeping on me, then what was it? I was honestly too angry to even speak. This psycho had clearly taken the photo of me in secret, and yet she was somehow twisting the whole thing around on me. The growing crowd around us was whispering like crazy, and some people were even whipping out their cell phones to start recording the drama. Staring at the cameras, I knew I had lost to her. Again. My hands visibly trembled as I took the stupid bracelet and slowly slipped it onto my free wrist. Instantly, the two little bells began to jingle merrily together, almost as if they were loudly proclaiming my doom. It looks so perfect on you. She stared hungrily at my chained wrists and suddenly cracked a sweet smile, reaching out to gently flick the bells. This way, absolutely no one will ever dare to steal you away. Her fingertips felt like solid ice, but strangely enough, when they brushed against my skin, I surprisingly didn't violently dodge away like I usually did. Remember this from now on. She leaned in dangerously close to my ear, her voice sickly, soft and clingy, like a thick piece of sticky hard candy that just wouldn't melt. You are absolutely not allowed to talk to other girls. You're not allowed to look at other girls, and you are definitely not allowed to think about anyone else in your heart. But right before she could even finish her creepy vow, my phone started ringing again. It was that exact same unknown number. I didn't dare answer it, but Scarlett's face instantly drained of all its color, turning a ghostly white. She aggressively snatched the phone right out of my hand, glared at the caller, ID, and suddenly slammed the device violently onto the concrete. Staring down at the name flashing on the screen, her voice went cold enough to freeze hell over. She actually has the nerve to call you again. The glass screen was totally shattered, but it stubbornly remained lit. Scarlett's empty gaze grew more and more terrifying by the second, looking exactly like a starved wolf locking onto its prey. A massive surge of raw fear suddenly gripped my chest. Not fear of what this psycho would do to me, but a paralyzing fear of what she might actually do to Chloe. Fast forward to the clinic. The wound on my arm was literally just a minor scrape. The school doctor casually disinfected it and slapped a regular Band-Aid right over it. But Scarlett was acting like the damn sky was falling. She obsessively insisted on watching me change the dressing and kept hounding the poor school doctor with an endless barrage of paranoid questions. She was completely terrified that my little scratch might leave a scar. "Doctor, his skin is very delicate and he heals so slowly. Should we get him some heavy-duty scar removal cream?" She leaned over the doctor's desk, her eyes staring with crazy intensity, like she was guarding some rare, priceless treasure. "Seriously, there's no need," I said, standing up and just wanting to get the hell out of there. But her hand clamped down, pulling me back with ironclad firmness. "Hold on just a second." She fished a small box out of her canvas tote bag and shoved it into my hands. The box was a soft pink, tied perfectly neat with a little ribbon bow. I hesitated, refusing to take it, but Jax nudged me hard from the side. He shot me a subtle, wide-eyed look that silently warned me not to butt heads with her right now. Defeated, I popped it open to take a look. Tucked inside was a silver necklace, and the pendant was shaped into a tiny, perfect little candy wrapper design. The edges were polished perfectly smooth, totally different from cheap street vendor junk. "Put it on," she whispered, her tone suddenly softening. Her fingertips lightly brushed against my collarbone, sending a shiver down my spine. I saved my allowance for a really long time to buy this. My hands froze. Her fingertips were ice cold, yet the exact spot she touched felt like it was burning right through my skin. On the way back to the dorm, she gripped my arm tight, walking incredibly slowly. The bell on my wrist jingled every so often, pounding against my heart perfectly in sync with her footsteps. "It's all Chloe's fault," she suddenly muttered under her breath. Her voice was muffled but bitter. "If she hadn't kept looking for you, you wouldn't have gotten hurt. It has nothing to do with her," I shot back. I frowned deep. I shielded her on my own accord. "You're just way too soft-hearted," she replied. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling like they held the literal stars. "Don't be so nice to other people from now on. Just be nice to me." I turned my face away, remaining completely silent. Later, when the guys in my dorm saw the new necklace around my neck, they laughed their heads off. Jack snatched it over to inspect it and let out a loud, teasing whistle. "Not bad, Ethan. The campus beauty is playing for keeps this time." "What do you mean by keeps?" I asked. I wanted to explain, but I couldn't find the right words to make it clear, so I just ripped the necklace off and shoved it deep into my pocket. Early the next morning, Chloe dropped a bomb in the class group chat. She said her laptop got stolen, and it held all her final exam review materials. She sounded like she was on the verge of a total breakdown. My heart skipped a violent beat, and a heavy sense of dread washed over me. Sure enough, around 10 o'clock that evening, our department advisor suddenly came banging on the door. "Ethan, get out here." His face was totally grim. Once inside the office, I saw Chloe with bloodshot eyes, her eyelids swollen up like walnuts from crying so hard. Scarlett was sitting in a corner chair with her back turned to me. Her shoulders trembled slightly, acting as if she were the victim who had been terribly wronged. "This is yours, right?" The advisor pointed a stern finger at the laptop on his desk. There was a little bear sticker right on the casing. I recognized it instantly. It belonged to Chloe. "It's not mine," I said, quickly shaking my head, "but someone saw you lurking outside the girls' dorm building last night, acting incredibly suspicious." The advisor pulled out his phone and swiped to a blurry photograph. I gulped. The silhouette in the picture actually did look a lot like me. Furthermore, Chloe says that this laptop contains secret photos you took of her, and that you threatened her into staying quiet. I did no such thing. I practically jumped out of my skin. "This is a total setup." "A setup?" Scarlett suddenly snapped her head around. Her eyes were completely bloodshot, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, how could you even say that? I know you hate Chloe constantly bothering you, but you really shouldn't have. You did this." I stared dead into her eyes, all the puzzle pieces suddenly snapping into place. "You stole her laptop, hid it outside my dorm building, and then completely fabricated all this garbage." "I didn't." She sobbed even harder, her shoulders shaking like a fragile leaf in the wind. I just like you way too much. Whenever I see you talking to her, I just can't control myself. But I never, ever wanted to hurt you." With her putting on an Oscar-worthy performance like this, forget the advisor, even Chloe standing next to us looked seriously creeped out. "Ethan, the evidence looks incredibly bad for you right now." The advisor frowned, a deep crease forming on his forehead. "Chloe has already called the cops." "Called the cops?" My mind instantly went completely blank, a loud ringing echoing in my ears. If this made it all the way to the police station, even if I was cleared in the end, the campus gossip would totally ruin my life. "As long as you tell me the truth." Scarlett suddenly stopped crying. She looked up at me, the crazed intensity in her eyes burning terrifyingly bright. Just say that you'll never talk to Chloe again, and that you'll be with me forever. Then I'll tell the teacher that I must have seen wrong, and that I just picked up the laptop wanting to return it. Her twisted words felt like a thick rope slowly tightening around my neck. Ethan, don't listen to her. Chloe suddenly spoke up, her voice sharp as a tack and incredibly firm. I absolutely believe you didn't do it. We'll just wait for the police to do their jobs. Scarlett's face instantly turned chalk white. She stared dead at Chloe. The sheer toxic malice in her eyes was like a venomous snake, making my blood run ice cold. Shut up, Scarlett suddenly shrieked. She violently snapped to her feet. This is all because of you. If you hadn't kept throwing yourself at Ethan, why would he ever ignore me? If it weren't for you, how could we have ended up like this? I'll kill you, you homewrecker. She lunged forward like a total lunatic, violently sweeping a glass cup off the desk. It shattered against the floor with an explosive crash. Without a second of hesitation, she snatched up a jagged shard of glass and lunged directly for Chloe's face. Watch out! Acting purely on instinct, I shoved Chloe out of the way and threw my own body right in the line of fire. The glass shard sliced viciously into my arm. Blood instantly surged out, dyeing half my sleeve a sickening crimson. Scarlett completely froze, the bloody glass clattering loudly onto the floor. She just stood there, staring at the fresh blood dripping down my arm, her eyes blown completely wide in pure shock. Suddenly, she let out an ear-piercing wail, throwing herself forward and clawing at my arm. You're bleeding! Does it hurt? It's all her fault! It's all her fault! Her tears dripped right onto my open wound, feeling freezing cold against my skin. Seeing her cry with such absolute heartbreaking desperation, my chest suddenly tightened up, leaving me gasping for air. She was completely insane, wildly obsessive, and absolutely terrifying. But just a second ago, when she saw my blood, the sheer panic and agony in her eyes didn't look fake at all. Get your hands off him, Chloe screamed, looking completely scared out of her wits. Chloe reached out to help me up, but Scarlett violently shoved her away. He is mine. He can only be mine. Scarlett locked onto my arm with a desperate death grip, her fingernails digging so deep they almost pierced my flesh. Her eyes flashed with a twisted cocktail of madness and pure terror that I had never, ever seen before. And then, it hit me. She wasn't just trying to force me into a relationship with her. She was deathly afraid of me leaving her. So terrified, in fact, that she pulled off this insane stunt to chain me to her side, weaponizing guilt, weaponizing fear, and weaponizing this very bleeding wound. And the worst part, it actually felt like I was completely ensnared in her trap. The gash on my arm was still throbbing with pain, but honestly, what hurt even more was my heart. It was such a messed up, confusing feeling. Being stared at with such insane devotion, being needed this desperately. It actually made me feel a bizarre, twisted sliver of hesitation. Even so, I decided I still needed to meet up with Chloe. My chest felt as heavy as a literal boulder. If I didn't dig up the truth about Scarlett's past, this gnawing anxiety was going to eat me alive. We agreed to meet up at a quiet little cafe right by the school's back gate. By the time I walked in, Chloe was already sitting in a booth by the window, staring blankly at an untouched glass of lemonade. Thank you for actually meeting with me. She slowly looked up, her eyes still puffy and red. I'm so sorry about what happened the other day. I totally dragged you into this mess. Hey, it's not your fault, I said, pulling out a chair and sitting down. So, what did you want to tell me? She gripped her glass so hard her knuckles turned completely white. She sat in dead silence for what felt like ages before finally whispering, her voice trembling. Scarlett and I, we were in the exact same class back in high school. My heart immediately skipped a beat, but back then, she didn't go by Scarlett. Her real name was Tiffany. Chloe's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, like she was terrified of waking up a monster. Even back then, she was just off. She never talked to anyone, always isolating herself in the corner, like she was hiding some dark, heavy secret. Eventually, she started dating this guy in our class. He was super popular, you know? Always had a crowd of girls swooning over him. Chloe paused for a brief second, taking a shaky sip of her lemonade to calm her nerves. When she was still Tiffany, she became incredibly paranoid and unhinged. She stalked him every single day, banned him from talking to any other girls, and even secretly wiped contacts right off his phone. My own hand instantly tightened around my glass. Why the hell did this sound so chillingly familiar? The guy couldn't take her crazy behavior anymore and dumped her, flat out saying he wanted to date someone else. Chloe leaned in, dropping her voice even lower. And then, just a few days later, that guy had a horrific accident. He quote-unquote fell all the way down the massive staircase in the academic building. He shattered his leg so badly he had to drop out on medical leave for over a year. A cold wave of dread washed over my scalp. Wait, did Scarlet do it? No one actually caught her in the act, but somebody overheard them having a massive, screaming fight right at the top of those stairs, literally minutes before he fell. Chloe looked up at me, pure, lingering terror still haunting her eyes. That person heard Scarlet shrieking, "If you dare leave me, I'll make sure you can never walk away. You will never leave me forever." Those deranged words stabbed straight into my brain like a jagged icicle. No wonder she absolutely lost her mind at the mere mention of breaking up. No wonder she glared at Chloe like a predator ready to tear her throat out. Right after that, she transferred out. I heard she legally changed her name. I only managed to recognize her when I bumped into her at this university. Chloe let out a long, heavy sigh, seeing how totally hysterical she went yesterday. It dragged up all those horrific memories from high school. Seriously, Ethan, you need to watch your back around her. It honestly looks like she's clinging to you as her absolute last straw. That phrase, last straw, made my heart give a pathetic, sympathetic ache. Just as I opened my mouth to reply, my phone aggressively blew up with a call. It was Jax. "Dude, where the hell are you?" Jax's voice was completely cracking, practically hysterical with panic. "Scarlet is standing right outside our damn dorm building. She's screaming that if you don't get back here right now, she's going to jump straight off the roof." My brain instantly exploded into static. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out the door, sprinting like a madman back to the dorms. And sure enough, I saw Scarlet standing right by the main entrance. She was wearing that same pink dress, her face completely drained of blood and her eyes dead and hollow like a broken puppet with all its strings slashed. A massive crowd of students had already swarmed around her, whispering and pointing. Jax and the guys were sweating bullets, completely paralyzed with anxiety. They wanted to drag her away, but nobody dared to even lay a finger on her. "Thank God, you're finally back," Jax gasped, his eyes turning bloodshot the second he saw me. Scarlet noticed me too. In an instant, those dead, hollow eyes flashed with a brilliant, obsessive spark like thick dust being suddenly wiped away from a glowing star. She sprinted toward me like an absolute maniac and locked me in a crushing death grip, squeezing with so much terrifying force. It felt like she was trying to crush me right into her flesh and blood. "You are back," she sobbed. "You finally came back to me." She was violently shaking all over, her hot tears completely soaking through the shirt on my chest. "I thought you did not want me anymore," she choked out. "I thought you left with her." "I didn't leave," I muttered. I raised my hand, wanting to pat her back to calm her down, but my fingers just froze in midair. "Please, do not leave me. Please, I am begging you." She lifted her head, her eyes swollen red like walnuts, heavy teardrops still clinging to her eyelashes. "I only have you left in this world. I truly only have you. If you walk away, I will literally die. I am not leaving." I sighed, cutting off her frantic rambling. Honestly, I didn't know if I was terrified she might actually jump off a building or if I was just stung by the absolute crushing despair in her eyes. Only then did she finally quiet down, still clutching my arm in a death grip like a frightened little animal, not daring to let go of me for even a single second. "Let's go find a safe place to talk." I pulled her away from the crowd, heading toward the small grove of trees just behind the school campus. Jax tried to tag along, but I waved him off. I had to handle this nightmare alone. The woods were dead silent, so quiet you could hear every single gust of wind rustling through the leaves. I gently released her hand, taking a cautious half step backward, just to establish some breathing room. "Scarlet," I said heavily, "let's end this." I looked dead into her eyes, enunciating every single syllable as clearly as humanly possible. She completely froze. "Ah?" she breathed out, looking like her brain couldn't even process the words. A few agonizing seconds later, all the color completely drained from her face, turning her sickly, deathly pale. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "What did you just say?" I said, "We are over," I repeated, taking a deep, shaky breath. "I do not want to keep going on like this anymore. It is just way too terrifying." "Terrifying?" She suddenly let out a sharp, broken laugh, laughing so incredibly hard that fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You think I am terrifying? Then why did you tell me back then that you wanted to be my dog? Why did you give me all this hope? Look, that was just a stupid game." "I do not care what kind of sick game it was," she suddenly shrieked, her eyes going completely, insanely bloodshot. "You said those exact words, so you belong to me. You cannot back out now. That other boy backed out, and he ended up with a broken leg. If you walk away, I will make you. I will break my own leg too." A freezing chill ran down my spine as I stared dead at her. You were the one who pushed that poor guy down the stairs back in high school, weren't you? Her face instantly turned stark, ghost white. She stumbled a step backward, her wide eyes completely overflowing with raw panic. It was not me. It was not me, she stammered out. Whether it was actually you or not, it honestly does not matter anymore, I said, slowly shaking my head. Scarlett, this twisted kind of love of yours is just too horrifying. I cannot afford the price. You can afford it. You have to take it. Without warning, she yanked a folding pocket knife right out of her jacket. The gleaming, sharp blade pointed directly toward my chest and then swerved to point at herself. If you will not be with me, I will kill you right here, and then I will kill myself. That way, we can be together forever. Her hand was shaking violently as she screamed, and yet her dark gaze was extraordinarily unyielding, looking exactly like an unstable kid clutching a live explosive device, totally ready to drag the entire freaking world down to hell with her. Absolutely terrified, I backed away, my spine hitting a rough tree trunk until I had nowhere left to retreat. Looking at the deadly knife trembling in her grip, I suddenly felt an overwhelming, bone-deep wave of exhaustion wash over me. Scarlett, just calm down. I tried my absolute best to keep my voice steady, like I was trying to defuse a ticking bomb. Let's just talk this through properly, okay? Do not be like this. There's nothing left to talk about. She pressed closer, step by agonizing step, the sharp tip of the blade creeping nearer and nearer to my pounding chest. Either be with me, or we die together today. The warm sunlight filtered through the gaps in the green leaves above, casting mottled, eerie shadows onto the dirt ground. Just then, my eyes darted downward, noticing something lying right by her feet. Oh crap, it was my smartphone. I must have been in way too much of a rush running back here just now, and the stupid thing had slipped right out of my pocket. The screen was still brightly illuminated, openly displaying a candid photo of Chloe and me at the local cafe. In the picture, Chloe was lowering her head to take a sweet sip of her drink. She hadn't even known I was secretly taking a photo of her at the time. Unluckily for me, Scarlett noticed the glowing screen, too. She slowly followed my nervous line of sight, dropping her fierce gaze to look down at the dirt. The exact instant she saw that happy photo, the absolute last shred of sanity in her dark eyes completely burned away into ashes. It is her again. She let out a blood-curdling shriek and lunged directly at my throat. I am going to kill you, you lying traitor. Purely on survival instinct, I scrambled and dodged hard to the side. Her wild lunge missed completely, and she crashed heavily, face first onto the solid ground. The pocket knife flew right out of her grip, clattering in the dirt right next to my sneakers. This was my one chance. I quickly snatched up the dropped knife and pointed it defensively right at her. Do not come any closer, I warned. She lay sprawled in the dirt, her long hair wildly disheveled. She slowly lifted her head to look back up at me. The sheer, utter despair in her eyes was surging like a massive tidal wave, practically threatening to completely drown me on the spot. Are you really going to stab me with that knife? Her broken voice was as faint and fragile as a falling feather. Large, heavy tears crashed down into the dry dirt below. For her sake, you want to kill me? I do not want to kill anyone, I yelled back, my heart hammering against my ribs. My hand gripping the handle of the knife was visibly shaking. I just want you to stop aggressively stalking me. Impossible. She suddenly scrambled back up to her feet, lunging blindly at me with total, reckless abandon. You are mine. You can only ever be mine. Absolutely terrified, I frantically dodged backward, but my clumsy foot caught hard on a thick tree root and I crashed heavily onto my back. The damn knife slipped right out of my sweaty hand too, tumbling way out of my reach. Like a predator, she pounced right on top of me and trapped me in a suffocatingly tight embrace, burying her tear-stained face into my chest, crying her absolute heart out. Please do not leave me, Scarlett begged. Please, her desperate voice choked out, suddenly whimpering pitifully like a helpless little kitten. I promise, I will change. I will never go crazy like this again. I swear I will treat you so well. I'll wash your clothes and cook for you. I'll do whatever you tell me to. Please, Ethan, just don't leave me all alone. Her tears were scalding hot, burning against my chest until it physically throbbed. I thought about Chloe calling her a lost cause. I thought about that boy who ended up with a broken leg. I thought about the raw obsession and pure terror in her eyes. If I actually walked away, what the hell would happen to her? Looking down at the girl in my arms, crying so hard she was about to pass out, it suddenly hit me. Maybe, just maybe, beneath all her absolute madness, there was a truth I was just too terrified to admit, a desperate sincerity that was treating this like a matter of life and death. Slowly, I raised my hand. After hesitating for what felt like an eternity, I finally let it rest gently on her back. Hey, stop crying, I whispered. My own voice sounded completely foreign to me. She stopped dead in her tracks. She looked up at me, this flash of pure disbelief shining in her teary eye. Maybe Chloe was right all along. She was just absolutely terrified of being abandoned. And, honestly, it seemed like I didn't really want to push her away either. From that day on, I guess I truly just accepted my fate. Scarlet still shadowed my every move, day in and day out, micromanaging every single detail of my life. She refused to let me even put an arm around Jax and the guys, claiming that men shouldn't get too close to each other, either. She banned me from ordering the braised pork ribs in the cafeteria, saying they were way too greasy and bad for my health. Man, she even dictated what color socks I was allowed to wear. Behind her back, Jax and the boys started calling me Scarlet's little puppy. You could hear the pity in their voices, but I honestly didn't even have the energy to fight back anymore. That little bell on my wrist, I had secretly taken it off and hidden it a long time ago. But somehow, I could always still hear it jingling, merrily ringing right in my ears like some crazy auditory hallucination. She really was good to me. So good, it was totally suffocating. Every single morning, at exactly 6:30, she'd be standing right outside the guy's dorm. She'd be holding a piping hot cup of soy milk, perfectly mixed with exactly 2 scoops of sugar. She wrapped all my textbooks in neat little covers, and on the inside flaps, she'd written Ethan's book in this gorgeous, elegant handwriting. While I was stuck in class, she would literally sneak off with a whole week's worth of my dirty socks, wash them, and hang them out on her dorm balcony, drawing a massive wave of jokes from everyone. You really don't have to do this, I told her once, watching her crouch on the floor, scrubbing my sneakers as soap suds splashed all over her pant. My chest felt completely tight. But I want to, she chirped. She looked up and shot me a bright smile, the sunlight catching her pale, almost translucent face. In that moment, she actually looked incredibly beautiful. You're my man, she said softly. If I don't treat you like a king, who else is going to? Her words felt like a tiny, sharp needle, gently pricking my heart. I just looked away and stayed quiet. But beneath all that suffocating kindness, there was this dark, intense obsession that made my entire scalp tingle with dread. Like this one time, I borrowed an eraser from a girl in my class. Literally the very next day, that poor girl's textbook was shredded into a million pieces. Another time, Jax secretly slipped me a ticket to a basketball game. The second Scarlet found out, she marched straight onto the court and dragged me away in front of the whole crowd, loudly claiming, "I just don't want you getting heat stroke out here." I just grew quieter and quieter. The guys back at the dorm joked that I looked like all the life had been entirely drained out of my soul. But only I knew that the string holding my sanity together was pulled dangerously tight. I never knew when it was finally going to snap. That is, until the day I spotted that little pink notebook in her backpack. She had stepped away to get some hot water, casually leaving her bag open on the library table. A tiny corner of it was peeking out. Soft, pink, looking exactly like some innocent little kid's diary. I honestly didn't plan on snooping, but every time she looked at that specific notebook, her face would morph into something so weird. It was like she was guarding a sacred treasure or hiding some deep, twisted impulse. Driven by curiosity, I pulled it out and flipped to the very first page. Staring back at me was my own name, written in bright red ink, traced over and over again until the paper was practically torn. I kept flipping. The pages were absolutely crammed with random, obsessive notes about me. Ethan wore a blue t-shirt today. When the wind blew, his collar lifted up just enough for me to see his collarbone. He looks like he's lost weight. I have to make him eat more. March 6th. He went to play basketball with Eli. He smiled so big when he nailed that three-pointer, and his teeth looked so perfectly white. I hid behind a tree and just watched him for hours. He didn't even notice me. March 17th. I'm so mad. He borrowed an eraser from that girl, Chloe. That bitch's fingers actually brushed against his hand. I was so mad I couldn't sleep, so I threw his eraser straight into the trash. March 18th. He complained about having insomnia, so I slipped a little bit of sedative into his water. He slept so peacefully. I sat right by his bed and watched him sleep for half the night. His eyelashes are so long. Reading that, my hands violently started to shake. So, the reason I slept like a rock that night wasn't because I was actually tired. I kept flipping through the pages, and her handwriting just got more and more frantic. It started looking completely unhinged. March 9th. He seems unhappy. Did he figure it out? I brought him his favorite strawberry cake. He only took 2 bites. He still has to like me at least a little bit, right? March 20th. Chloe tried talking to him again. That girl definitely wants to steal my Ethan. I need to teach her a permanent lesson. March 21st. I hid that girl's laptop and dumped it under Ethan's dorm building. This way, he'll have absolutely no choice but to come begging me for help. He will have to depend on me. March 22nd. He met up with Chloe. He actually dared to meet up with her. I took a picture of the whole thing. If he ever dares to see her again, I swear I'll... The rest of the sentence was violently blacked out, viciously scribbled over with thick ink until the words were completely unreadable. Flipping to the next page, it was written entirely in blood-red ink. The frantic, heavy pen strokes literally ripped right through the thin paper. That boy back in high school was exactly like this too. He swore he loved me, but the second my back was turned, he started cozying up to someone else. He completely deserved to get his leg broken. Ethan, you are not allowed to be like him. You hear me? You are not allowed. You are mine. You can only ever be mine. Whoever dares to steal you away, I will kill them, and that includes you. The notebook slipped from my trembling hands and clattered onto the floor. A sickening chill crawled up my spine, making my skin crawl as if thousands of insects were swarming over my back. I stared down at those deranged pages, and a terrifying realization hit me. I suddenly understood why he always remembered that I hated cilantro, why he knew exactly when to put 2 scoops of sugar in my soy milk, and why he knew I always clenched my fists whenever a horror movie came on. His obsession was like a blinding spotlight, tracking my every single move, 24 hours a day, suffocating me without a single inch to breathe. This wasn't love at all. This was a psychological kidnapping, and yet, deep down in some twisted corner of my heart, I felt a slight, involuntary tremble. To be the absolute center of someone's dead-eyed fixation, to be so obsessively calculated and engraved into their very soul, it actually gave me this sick, bizarre sense of validation. What are you looking at? Scarlett's chilling voice suddenly echoed from right behind me. I jolted so hard I nearly jumped out of my skin. He was standing there, gripping 2 thermoses in his hands. The second his eyes locked onto the dropped notebook, the color instantly drained from his face. You saw it all. His voice trembled uncontrollably, like a terrified child whose darkest secret had just been exposed. I didn't say a single word. I just stood there, staring a hole right through him. Actually, it's probably for the best that you saw it. He suddenly cracked a smile. A deeply unsettling, bitter laugh escaped his lips. This way, you finally understand just how much I truly love you. I would do absolutely anything for you, Ethan. This isn't love. It's pure, unfiltered psychosis. I roared back, my voice completely cracking from the sheer terror. It is love, he shrieked hysterically, lunging forward and wrapping his arms around me in a suffocating death grip. It's the purest, truest kind of love. I am the only person in this world who genuinely cares about you. Everyone else is completely fake. His sharp fingernails dug violently into my back, ripping a sharp gasp of pain right out of my throat. And yet, his voice kept shaking, breaking into pathetic, desperate sobs like a puppy terrified of being abandoned. But right at that moment, my cell phone started ringing. It was Jax. His voice was completely cracking, fueled by pure, unadulterated panic. Ethan, you need to get to the hospital right freaking now. Something awful happened to Chloe. She just took a massive fall down the library stairs. A deafening buzz instantly exploded inside my head. Chloe, I violently snapped my head around and glared straight at Scarlett. His pale face was utterly blank and completely expressionless, but his fingers were gripping the thermos in an absolute deathlock, his knuckles turning bone white from the pressure. Did you do this? I grabbed his arms and shook him violently. It wasn't me, he stammered, his terrified gaze darting shiftily across the room. I swear I didn't push her. If it wasn't you, then who the hell was it? I screamed, my eyes burning violently bloodshot. You literally just said yesterday that you wanted to teach her a lesson. I was just venting. He slowly lowered his head, his voice dropping as soft and irritating as a mosquito's buzz. Besides, who told that bitch to keep throwing herself at you? Looking down at his pathetic state, it suddenly clicked. He wasn't denying the attack because he was innocent. No, he was just absolutely terrified of my reaction. He was mortified that if I found out the truth, I would completely push him out of my life forever. Exactly like a frantic child terrified of losing his very last piece of candy. His eyes were burning red with manic anxiety. He really was capable of doing absolutely anything. Suddenly, my phone rang again. Jax was screaming through the speaker. The doctors just said they might not be able to save her leg. Get your ass over here, quick. They might not save her leg? I stared blankly at Scarlett's sickeningly pale face, then slowly looked down at the twisted notebook scattered across the floor, filled to the brim with his insane delusions. A violent wave of pure nausea viciously hit my stomach, but it wasn't just disgust toward him. It was a suffocating disgust directed entirely at myself, because just a few seconds ago, I had actually felt a pathetic shred of warmth over his psychotic madness, all just because he remembered I didn't eat cilantro. I slowly let go of his arms, my voice dropping as cold as dead ice. You are absolutely horrifying. He slowly lifted his head, the hopeful light in his eyes dying out inch by agonizing inch, like a raging fire burning down to nothing but cold, dead ashes. I just didn't want to lose you, Ethan. His voice was as fragile and faint as a dying sigh. But acting like this, you'll never be able to keep anyone. I immediately turned on my heel and bolted out the door. Right behind me, I could hear the terrifying sound of the notebook being violently ripped to absolute shreds, echoing alongside his stifled, beast-like whimpering. Later, the overwhelming smell of cheap disinfectant at the hospital made my nose aggressively sting. While Chloe was fighting in the emergency room, her mother was slumped in the cold hallway, weeping uncontrollably, her hair tangled up as messy as wild weeds. Jax quickly spotted me and dragged me aside. The cops are already asking questions. Apparently, someone saw Scarlett totally cornering Chloe at the library entrance earlier this morning. They were having a massive argument. It was exactly what I had dreaded. Yet my heart still plummeted to the bottom of my stomach like a heavy sinking stone. Why the hell did he have to go to such psychotic lengths? I muttered numbly to myself. Man, who even knows? Jax let out a long, exhausted sigh. Maybe he honestly feels that this twisted crap is the only way to bind you tightly to his side. Bind me to his side? I suddenly flashed back to the pitiful sight of him crouching down just to brush the dirt off my sneakers. I remembered the deranged, bloody words scratched into his notebook. He took exactly 2 bites of the cake. He must still care about me at least a little bit, right? I told myself, flashing back to him, bawling his eyes out and choking. You are literally all I have left. My chest felt incredibly tight, like a massive concrete block was crushing my lungs. Being loved this insanely, this violently by someone, was it some kind of twisted blessing or an absolute nightmare of a curse? Standing completely numb outside the emergency room doors, I actually started to seriously ask myself that question for the very first time. But before my brain could even process an answer, my phone started buzzing. It was an unknown number. I swiped to answer, and Scarlett's voice instantly crept through the speaker. His tone was terrifyingly dead calm. Ethan, I am waiting for you up on the rooftop. If you do not show up, I am jumping right off. The threat hit me just as I remembered sprinting into the hospital, staring up at the blazing red lights above the ER doors. Chloe's mom was slumped in a hard hallway chair, her hair an absolute rat's nest of stress. The literal second she spotted me, her eyes swelled with fresh, angry tears. My buddy Jax grabbed my arm, his voice completely shaking. Man, the doc just came out. He said the damage to her leg is insanely severe. She might be stuck hobbling on crutches for the rest of her life. Hearing that, my heart felt like it was caught in a vice grip, squeezed so brutally I could barely even breathe. My gut instinct instantly screamed one single, terrifying name. Scarlett. Who else on earth held that kind of psycho, burning grudge against poor Chloe? I spun on my heels and bolted straight back to the campus. Jax yelled my name from behind, but I did not even bother glancing back. I had one single, burning mission locked in my head. Track Scarlett down and force a real explanation out of him. Sure enough, there the crazy guy was, standing right outside their dorm building. His back was turned, that signature pink dress of his fluttering softly in the chilly breeze. Hearing my heavy footsteps, he slowly turned around. His face was a total blank slate, but his eyes were just terrifyingly dead and hollow. You did this to her, didn't you? I grabbed his arm, my fingertips shaking like a leaf. He did not even try to fight back. He just stared straight into my soul, the corners of his mouth curling up into this sick, faint little smile. It wasn't me, he whispered. If it wasn't you, then who the hell was it? My eyes were completely bloodshot, my voice cracking under the intense pressure. You literally went off on her just yesterday. You looked her dead in the eye and said you would make her pay the ultimate price. I was just blowing off steam. He looked down, his long, dramatic eyelashes casting dark shadows on his pale cheeks. How could I possibly do something so purely evil? Doing something like that would only make you hate me. Make me hate you? I let out this harsh, bitter, almost mocking bark of a laugh. When you literally shoved her down a flight of concrete stairs, did you even stop to think how I would feel about that? I did not push her. He snapped his head up, his eyes suddenly blazing with this desperate, manic intensity, like literal stars were burning inside his pupils. Ethan, you have to believe me. It honestly wasn't me. His stare was so insanely intense, so frighteningly sincere, it sent my heart right into a total panic attack. I shoved his hand away and backed up a step. I saw you at the library yesterday, talking to some sketchy dude from off campus. You paid him to do your dirty work, didn't you? My boy Jax had actually just dropped that massive text bomb on me a few minutes ago. He said a witness caught Scarlett meeting up with some thug-looking guy near the school's back gates last week, even sliding him a thick, shady envelope full of cash. Scarlett's face instantly drained of all its color, turning stark white. He stumbled half a step back, looking exactly like a cornered cat that just got its tail stomped on. You are secretly investigating me? I don't want to investigate your life. I stared at him, suddenly drowning in total, utter, bone-deep exhaustion. I just need you to stop this madness. Chloe is completely innocent in all this. She is not innocent, he suddenly shrieked, his eyes turning a furious, crazy, bloodshot red. She was trying to steal you away from me. The way that trash looked at you, it was exactly like that awful girl in high school who tried to steal my boyfriend. Every single one of them deserves to die. Scarlett, wake the hell up, I roared back. I am not your boyfriend, and I am damn sure not your personal property. Yes, you are. He lunged right at me, clawing for my shirt, but I barely managed to dodge out of his psycho grip. You promised you wanted to be my loyal dog. You literally said it out of your own mouth. You can't just back out now. Right on cue with this nightmare, my phone started blaring. It was the local police calling. They said they had just found a rock-solid eyewitness who literally watched Scarlett shove Chloe down the library stairs yesterday. Turns out, that hired thug, Doug, folded too, confessing that Scarlett paid him big bucks to help stage the whole freak accident. The cops are on their way. I hung up the phone, staring at him as a massive storm of anger, pity, and absolute dread completely ripped through my chest. He just stood there, totally blanked out for a second. Then, out of nowhere, he burst into this hysterical, manic laughter until actual tears streamed down his cheeks. Honestly, that works too. At least this way, you won't find me so annoying anymore, right? I don't find you annoying. I am just absolutely terrified of you, I muttered, my voice dropping dangerously low. I am terrified of you, and I am absolutely terrified of this twisted version of you. Terrified of me? His crazy smile instantly froze, and the manic light in his eyes just died out, inch by agonizing inch. You are only terrified because I treat you way too perfectly. Terrified because I consider you my entire universe. Out of absolutely nowhere, he whipped a small, brutally sharp pocket knife from his dress. The cold steel gleamed under the campus streetlights. It looked old and worn out, like it had seen way too much dark history. What the hell are you doing? Panicking out of my mind, I stumbled backward. Oh, nothing at all, he purred, flicking the wicked blade open. Without even blinking, he dragged it right across his own forearm. Dark beads of blood instantly pooled out of the cut. I just need to make sure you never, ever forget about me. I lunged forward to rip the knife away, but he slipped right past my desperate grasp. I just watched in horror, looking at him holding up his bleeding arm, smiling this deeply twisted, incredibly unsettling smile. I am bleeding for you, Ethan. Just like that time you took the shattered glass to protect me, now we are totally even, and you are going to remember my name for the rest of your damn life. A massive crowd had already gathered around us, phone cameras flashing and clicking non-stop like paparazzi. His blood dripped heavily down his arm, pooling on the concrete and blooming like twisted little red flowers. Just look at him staring at me, his eyes burning with this frantic, unhinged anticipation. Everyone knows exactly how much I love you now, he whispered. Even if I go to jail, you'll never be able to get rid of me. The cops arrived on the scene fast, sirens blaring. He didn't even put up a fight when they slapped the cuffs on him. He just kept his eyes completely locked onto mine the entire time, the intensity in them terrifyingly bright. Ethan, he suddenly called out to me, right before the cops shoved him into the back of the car. His voice was barely a whisper, yet it pierced straight through my chest like a jagged needle. I'll wait for you. I just stood frozen in place, watching him get hauled away in that cruiser. The wail of the sirens faded further and further into the distance. The fresh blood on the asphalt quickly dried up in the wind, turning a sickening, rusty brown. My buddy Jax walked over and gave my shoulder a heavy pat. It's over, man. But is it really over? I just stared blankly at the empty school gates. I swear I could still hear those exact words, "I'll wait for you," echoing right inside my head like a curse. My chest felt like someone had carved a massive hole right out of it. It was completely hollow, yet somehow impossibly heavy and suffocating. To be loved by a psycho like that, at the cost of his own damn life. What exactly was I supposed to feel here? I always thought it'd just be pure terror, an endless sense of suffocation. But after seeing the raw anticipation burning in his eyes as he was dragged away, I honestly couldn't find the right words for it anymore. Maybe it all started from the exact second I spat out those stupid words. I want to be your dog. From that moment, It was already fated that my life would be hopelessly, violently tangled up with his forever. Was being tied to him like this some twisted kind of punishment or something else entirely? I reached into my pocket and felt a hard, cold object resting inside. I pulled it out to get a better look. It was that damn backup bracelet he had forcefully jammed into my palm the last time we met. The little metal bells on it were still jingling softly. As the midday sunlight hit them, they flashed with a harsh, glaring light that made me squint. After Scarlett was locked up, the whole campus got quiet in this seriously eerie, unsettling way. A little while later, Chloe was finally discharged from the hospital. I went over to pick her up that day. She leaned heavily on her crutches, taking slow, painful steps. When she saw me, she just gave a faint smile, totally avoiding any talk about the bloody incident. "Thank you for coming, Ethan," she murmured softly. "I really should be the one apologizing. All of this, it's because of me." I grabbed her heavy bag for her, my own chest, feeling weighed down with massive guilt. By then, the cops had already pieced together exactly what went down. Not only did Scarlett push Chloe down the stairs, but that absolute maniac actually hired some street thug to help stage the whole accident. Scarlett's wealthy parents showed up at the school once, decked out in high-end tailored suits. They were bowing constantly and throwing empty apologies at Chloe's parents. They promised to cover every single dime of the medical bills, but their tone was cold and detached, like they were just settling some annoying, troublesome business transaction. Neither of them even bothered to mention Scarlett's name. It was like he was just a cheap glass cup that someone had accidentally shattered on the floor. In their eyes, as long as the messy cleanup was paid for, the whole problem was over and done with. Yet, I just couldn't shake the look in his eyes when they hauled him away. It was terrifyingly bright, basically screaming at me. "I knew all along that you would wait for me." The guys back in the dorm threw a massive party to celebrate my so-called regained freedom. I didn't even bother showing up. I just laid there in my dark dorm room that night, listening to Jax and the others yelling over their video games. I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling that something huge was missing. I was actually missing that pale, ghostly figure who used to shadow my every move. I was missing the annoying jingle of those little bells on my wrist. Hell, I even missed waking up to that hot soy milk with exactly 2 scoops of sugar every single morning. It was a twisted feeling, honestly, like going through intense drug withdrawals. My insomnia hit hard, and I kept tossing and turning, wondering if I hadn't played truth or dare that day, if I hadn't said those stupid words. Would everything be completely different now? Then came the day Scarlett's official court verdict was finally delivered. I was grinding through some practice problems in the library when my phone buzzed. Jax texted me to say Scarlett got 3 years behind bars. Since he was a minor and his rich family paid off the victims in full, he got off easy. The judge handled the whole case with extreme leniency. I just sat there, dead inside, staring at that glaring line of text on my bright phone screen. I pressed down so hard that the tip of my pen poked a jagged hole right through my notebook. 3 years. It wasn't a lifetime, but it definitely wasn't a short trip either. Would he really wait for me? The second that dangerous thought popped into my head, it started spreading wildly like toxic weeds. I tried my hardest to just move on and start a new life. I forced myself to go play basketball with Jax and the boys, dragged myself to the quiet library for self-study sessions, and I even agreed to go catch a movie with this cute girl from my class. But halfway through the film, Scarlett's voice suddenly echoed in my head. He used to whisper, "What's there to be so scared of in a horror movie? It's the human heart that's truly terrifying." And then he'd secretly press a piece of candy right into my hand in the dark. When the credits finally rolled, the girl smiled and asked if we could go on another date next time. I just mumbled some vague excuse and didn't make any promises. It felt like I had completely forgotten how to handle someone just treating me like a normal human being. Fast forward 3 months later. It was a chilly evening, and I was just leaning against the wall outside my dorm building, smoking a cigarette to calm my nerves. Out of nowhere, I heard someone call my name. "Ethan." The voice was incredibly soft, yet it shot straight down my spine like a live electric current. I whipped around violently. Standing right there under the flickering street lamp was a girl in a white dress, her face as pale as a sheet of paper. Holy crap, it was Scarlett. Why the hell was he out? The cigarette slipped right through my fingers, hitting the concrete with a soft spark. "I'm out of here," I muttered to myself. He just gave me this faint, unsettling smile, closing the gap between us in 2 quick steps. That unmistakable, sterile scent of hospital disinfectant clung heavily to his clothes. "My parents got a top-tier lawyer," he murmured. "They claimed I had severe psychological issues, so I was released on medical parole." My eyes darted straight down to his bare wrists. He used to never take off that silver bracelet, but now, completely gone. "You've lost weight," he whispered, reaching out to stroke my cheek. I flinched, dodging his hand instantly. Why the hell are you even here? I demanded, my voice totally shaking. I came to see you, obviously. He blinked at me, pouting like a kid who just got scolded. I promised I'd wait for you. Scarlet, I warned, you need to go get professional help. I am getting help, he replied. He flashed me this dreamy, dazed smile. My doctor said I'm just desperately starved for love. As long as you stay right by my side, I'll be 100% cured. Then, he fished something out of his pocket. It was a bracelet, an exact replica of the one I used to wear. A bright red string was tightly wrapped around the tiny bell. Without warning, he aggressively shoved it into my palm. Since you picked up the last one, I braided a brand new one just for you. I'm not wearing that, I snapped. Are you going to put it on or not? He demanded, his tone shifting. Suddenly, his hand clamped down around my wrist. His grip was terrifyingly strong, his nails practically digging right into my flesh. If you don't wear it, what the hell are you gonna do now? I roared at him. He didn't say a single word. He just stared at me as tears slowly pooled in his eyes. The pale moonlight washed over his face, making his skin look so sickly white it was almost completely translucent. He looked utterly, hopelessly pitiful. I missed you so much, he choked out, his voice cracking. When I was locked up in there, I counted down the days, every single day, agonizing over what you were doing at that exact second, wondering if you were eating on time, if you were talking to other girls. His words stabbed straight into my chest like sharp little needles. To be the absolute center of someone's universe like that, to have someone literally counting down the days just for you, it honestly knocked the wind right out of me. Ethan, please, can you just give me one more chance? Please. Out of nowhere, he dropped right to his knees and desperately gripped the hem of my pants. I swear I'll never go crazy again. I'll treat you so well. I'll listen to every single word you say. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. People walking by were already stopping to stare, pointing and whispering under their breath. I tried to yank him up, but he was like a boulder firmly nailed to the concrete. Get up, I hissed. I'll only get up if you promise me. He tilted his head back to look at me, thick tears streaming down his cheeks. You said you wanted to be my dog. Does that promise still count? There it was, those exact same words, haunting me like a twisted curse I couldn't ever shake off. Staring down into his tear-reddened eyes, a memory flashed. The dark chicken soup he had spent hours stewing just for me. I remembered the frantic scribbles I found in his notebook. He took 2 bites of the cake. Does he finally like me a little bit? I remembered him throwing himself in front of me, fiercely snarling, "No one is ever allowed to touch what's mine." Those intense memories spun through my head like shards of broken glass, leaving my brain in an absolute panicked mess. Just get up, I sighed, my tone finally softening. Instantly, his eyes lit up, and he scrambled to his feet like a happy puppy that just got handed a treat. I gently took the bracelet from his trembling hand and slid it onto my wrist. The little bell let out a sharp, crisp jingle that pierced right through the quiet night air. See, we're finally together again. His eyes curved into pure, joyful crescents as he reached out to softly stroke the bracelet. You're not allowed to take it off this time, okay? I didn't say a single word back. Suddenly, he rose up on his tiptoes and pressed a kiss to my cheek, a touch so light and gentle, it felt like a feather brushing past. I knew you would never abandon me. His voice was sickeningly sweet, carrying this undeniable hint of smug satisfaction. I just stared at his smiling face, a chaotic storm of completely conflicting emotions brewing deep in my chest. Was this actually love, or was it just a sick obsession? Was this my salvation, or was I diving headfirst into another dark abyss? Yet, the second he wrapped his arms tightly around me, burying his face right into my chest like a lost little animal that had finally found its way home, I found myself raising my hand on some weird, unexplainable impulse, letting it rest gently against his back. Ethan, he murmured softly into my shirt, let's be together forever, okay? The word forever felt way too heavy for me to carry. But looking down at that little bell on my wrist, listening to the rhythm of his steady breathing, I suddenly felt that maybe, just maybe, things wouldn't be so bad like this. To be loved so completely and madly by someone, even if that intense love came wrapped in sharp thorns, deep wounds, and a dark shadow I could never fully shake off. At the very least, I would never, ever be that invisible, completely disposable Ethan again. Okay, I heard my own voice say, and the little bell jingled one more time. Now give me your answer. Scarlett's entire body froze for a split second, and then he suddenly started to tremble violently. It wasn't out of fear, though. It was pure, unadulterated excitement. He squeezed me even tighter, his nails practically sinking straight into my flesh. I knew it. I totally knew you wouldn't leave. Hot tears soaked right through my shirt, feeling intensely warm against my skin as I gently stroked his hair. Come on, let's go, I told him. I'll walk you back. He nodded eagerly, lacing his fingers through mine as we walked forward step by step. The tiny bell on my wrist jingled endlessly with every move, like it was singing a twisted little song that absolutely no one else could ever understand. The moonlight stretched our shadows across the pavement, twisting them together into a dark, tangled knot that could never, ever be undone. Maybe, from the very second that twisted game of truth or dare ended, I was completely fated to fall helplessly right into his trap. I was ensnared by this frantic, blood-tinged love, a love so damn absolute and heavy that breaking free was entirely out of the question. Turns out, being a dog kept on a relentlessly short leash didn't feel quite as miserable as I thought it would. As the days bled together, the dynamic between Scarlet and me morphed into something highly bizarre. He never threatened to jump off a building again. He didn't even pull a knife on me. Instead, he just got insanely clingy, tracking my every move like an unshakable, obsessive shadow. Whenever I dragged myself to class, he would claim a seat in the absolute back row of the lecture hall, just staring at me without blinking a single time. When I hit up the dining hall, he already had my meal prepped and waiting, meticulously picking out every last shred of cilantro just the way I like it. When I headed back to my dorm at night, he would post up downstairs, stubbornly refusing to budge until he saw my bedroom window light up. The silver bell tied to my wrist was constantly jingling. Whenever I walked down campus streets, people knew exactly who was coming just by hearing that high-pitched chime. Once I gave up fighting it, Jax and the rest of the guys slowly stopped making a big deal out of the whole crazy situation. One night, Mason got totally trashed, clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder, and slurred, "Ethan, man, at least you found someone who genuinely gives a crap about you." Hearing the word genuinely stumble out of his mouth made something twist violently deep inside my chest. Sure, Scarlett's genuine care meant pouring my morning soy milk with exactly 2 extra scoops of sugar. It meant memorizing every single tiny preference I had. It was scrawling my name over and over until it filled an entire freaking notebook. But that brand of care came wrapped in razor wire. It was absolute control. It was sheer, unadulterated obsession. It was casually hurting other people just to force me into staying by his side. And the craziest part, I had slowly gotten used to it. Used to him hovering right over my shoulder. Used to the endless ringing of that damn bell. I had even grown completely numb to that terrifying, brief flash of raw ruthlessness that would cross his eyes. Whenever he glared at other girls, it was like the old frog boiling in a pot trick. It felt scalding and suffocating at first, but eventually, my senses just completely checked out. One afternoon, I dragged myself to the library to drop off some books and bumped straight into Chloe. She was leaning heavily on her crutches, and the split second she spotted me, she scrambled to get out of the way. "Hey, I am so sorry," I muttered. She didn't utter a single syllable, just shook her head frantically and pivoted to escape. Before she could, Scarlet materialized right behind me like a ghost. He snatched my arm in a vice grip, his dark eyes locking fiercely onto Chloe. "What exactly do you think you are doing? Trying to seduce him all over again?" he hissed. "I am not," Chloe gasped, her face draining to a stark, terrified white. I shoved myself in front of Scarlet, shielding her. "Knock it off," I snapped. But he refused to look at me, his manic gaze practically glued to Chloe as his voice trembled with rage. "She is just trying to steal you away from me. I know it," he cried. "I am not going anywhere." I sighed heavily, reaching out to gently rub his back. "I am right here, okay?" His entire frame went completely rigid for a second. Then he slowly melted against me like a spooked kitten, burying his face deep into my spine. Every single person in the lobby was staring a hole through me. Yet, strangely enough, that burning embarrassment I used to feel was just gone. Right then and there, it finally clicked what Mason meant by genuine care. What did it actually mean in my twisted reality? It meant there would probably never be another human soul on this earth who needed me as desperately as Scarlet did, who needed me to the point of absolute raving madness, who needed me to the absolute edge of obsession, craving my existence so much that I was quite literally his one and only reason to keep breathing. That heavy, suffocating feeling of being so completely needed, it was as intensely addictive as a heavy drug. Chloe limped away, but Scarlet remained glued to my arm, his pale fingers desperately clutching the bell on my wrist. "Why did you protect her just now?" his muffled voice demanded against my shirt. "Because she is innocent," I replied flatly. "In your heart, she means more to you than I do." I finally turned around, staring down at his pale, trembling face and the raw, agonizing insecurity flashing in his eyes. There was a time when that unhinged look would have sent me running for the hills, but now it just made my damn heart ache for the guy. "You are different," I told him softly. "You are my man." Honestly, the second those words left my mouth, even I was completely floored. Scarlet instantly froze, his wide eyes slowly lighting up like shooting stars crashing into crystal clear water. What? What did you just say? He whispered, his hands trembling violently against my arm. I said, "You are my man," I repeated, my voice coming out thick and gravelly, the kind that is never, ever getting away. A blinding smile practically exploded on his face. Tears spilled hot down his cheeks, even as he let out a breathless laugh, beaming exactly like a little kid who had just been handed their absolute favorite candy. He popped up on his tiptoes and pressed a frantic kiss to my cheek. It was a soft, fleeting touch that carried a faint hint of icy coolness. I knew it. He choked out between happy sobs. I knew you would never, ever abandon me. The silver bell on my wrist chimed again, echoing exceptionally loud and clear through the dead quiet library corridor. As I stood there, staring down at his tear-streaked, glowing smile, that vague, totally unexplainable knot in my chest finally found its real name. Maybe starting from the exact night of that stupid truth or dare game, from the very second he smirked and answered, "Sure, sure." I was completely destined to fall totally and helplessly into his twisted hands, forever ensnared by this frantic, blood-soaked, yet absolutely unshakable brand of love. A few weeks later, Jax pulled me aside and asked if I regretted giving in. I just brushed my thumb over the bell on my wrist, letting it let out another soft, metallic jingle. "I honestly have no idea," I told him, "but I do know that the sound of this bell is already carved permanently right into my damn bone, as long as it just keeps on ringing. I will always know there is someone out there who loves me to absolute distraction. In his own twisted way, he is never going to let me go for the rest of his life." Honestly, this kind of intense love was incredibly painful and totally suffocating, but weirdly enough, it offered me this absolute sense of peace. At the very least, I knew I would never again be that completely invisible and unnoticed by the world. And that is the end of Ethan's story. Make sure to drop a like and hit follow if you enjoyed the recap.